So the nutrition's one aspect of it, but how do we structure workouts? Kind of periodizing. We talked about how doing a 6 to 12 month long-term goal-specific program for gaining muscle, building muscle. Kind of how do you lay that year out? And I mean, really putting it into 8-week blocks, 8 to 12-week blocks, so that people are not only are their meals and their calories being periodized, and you know, I love linear periodization as far as like everything in my life, but increasing the calories to get to a specific place, but building a training program around it as well.
Well, there's 3 components. You know, there's mechanical tension is just adding weight to the bar, and then there's I totally blanked out. Metabolic. There's a metabolic response, and then there's also muscle damage. Those are the 3. That's the only 3 ways that you can actually gain muscle. But lately, if you listen to Chris Beardsley, who's my go-to dude on hypertrophy, a lot of people don't know him yet, but you should.
His Instagram is fantastic.
Oh,
you got to find him
man.
on Instagram.
Yeah,
He posts such good information.
Right. The number 1 is mechanical tension. Is like, you know, go to near failure, and then or there's 2 parts to that too. Like, going to near failure is awesome. Guaranteed you're going to gain some muscle. And I definitely recommend doing some of that. But like I said, you know, I was talking to you guys yesterday about Dr. Stone, and Chris Beardsley would agree, simply adding, you know, a higher volume and increasing that load would probably lead to more quality muscle, meaning faster twitch fibers. So there's that component too. But the bottom line is just add more weight to the bar. You know, getting the metabolic stress is important. However, Chris Beardsley is like, he's like, it's not as much as we thought, but yet I think the 2 together is where it really, you know, does well. Metabolic stress, let me dumb this down, is like the pump.
That's like the
get.
pump.
That's the pump. Yeah. You know, mechanical tension is nothing but like adding weight to the bar, and then the muscle damage is like the soreness that you're going to get. So
right, it's tough to tease out which component there is the most important, because you can't separate mechanical tension from metabolic stress or muscular soreness, because you have to have the tension to create the other 2 at some level.
I'm just such a big fan when I was training really hard to put on size of, there's 2 parts of it. The pure volume of how hard that training is when you start to get into higher rep counts, big movements, heavy, long sets of deadlifts and squats. But then the mental side of that too. Like, I feel like that really becomes the discipline in the training room, is like, can you really stick these training sessions out? Because you're in there for 90 minutes, and everything is as heavy and as long as you can go for a very long time. Thinking about like some of the bigger, I mean, German volume training clearly is one of them, but like
my favorite,
the 10 by 10. I mean, if you sit down and under 10 by 10 squat at 60%, you are fucked for a couple days. Like, you're gonna feel that.
Probably more than a couple, but but I'm yet to have one human do that and not PR.
Well, that's
2 weeks later.
That's really what I wanted to kind of get your opinion on, is like, how, when you think about writing a program of like, okay, we got to get this kid huge, we've got 6 months, do we instantly go to 10 by 10? I mean, it doesn't have to be German volume training, but like, is 100? Yeah,
I think
5 by 10.
Room. You know, here's what I found. I'm going to make it as simple as possible. I have found like a very high volume block, like 10 by 10s, even like, you know, with some 5 by 5s. I like undulated periodization. A very high volume block that feels like it's going to kill you and you're going to feel yourself feeling weaker, followed by an extremely deloaded week, followed by let's get strong now, leads to PRs. Like, that is like the magic bullet. And it's not even that magic. It's like, I just gave you what to do. And so if you follow that, a terrible block followed by not so terrible equals PRs. There you go. So, you know, you probably won't do it, and we'll keep winning, but that's it. So, I like winning, so please don't do it. But, you know, that's the magic
Don't
bullet.
follow. Don't follow.
That is it, man. You know, obviously in weightlifting, you got to get better at weightlifting. But if you're a powerlifter, that's it.
Well, so that's actually a really good point, I think, is using the Olympic lifts as your speed 1RM type muscle fiber.
Right.
And then as soon as you're done with your technique work and kind of the fast lifts, which should be no more than 3s to begin with.
Right.
Now you got 1s to 3s, somewhere in the 80 to 90% range, lots of technique, lots of really nice movement, lots of speed, power, and then move right into time to get fucking jacked.
Yeah.
And high rep.
We have found leaving like 1 rep, you know, in the tank is a little bit better, because when you go to complete failure, the recovery is so long. You know, like it delay, like, because mechanical tension, how many times can you do it adds up too. So like if it takes you 4 days to recover, then you've missed the boat there too. You want to stop before you're destroyed so you can come back 2 or 3 days later versus like 4 or 5. So it's mechanical tension on top of how many times can I do it too. So frequency plays a huge role.
You're looking at total volume over the block.
That's the key right there.
Not just the single training session.
Yeah, because if you have to do one squat session per week and that's all you do, it's tough to get the amount.
Have you noticed any difference in taking that volume work but adding it as like I know in the 1 ton challenge program it's like 10 by 3 front squats, which for a lot of people is a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
Especially when you start getting into percentages, but using like a front squat as far as recovery goes, just because the weight has to be a little bit lower.
Exactly.
The position has to be a little bit lower, and in my opinion there's significantly more benefit athletically to a front squat than
it's safer
back squats. But maintaining a high level of volume and the recovery being faster by making kind of the mechanical advantage of or disadvantage of the front squat versus the back squat. Do you program that a lot more because you can get your athletes just as strong but keeping them healthier and recovering faster?
There's multiple reasons the front squat. Like even for my powerlifters, there's multiple reasons why we do it, because number one, out of the 3, low bar, high bar, and front squat, it's going to strengthen the back more, which in both sports, the back is normally like the determining factor of who ends up being the greatest. Like, you've never seen the greatest powerlifter in the world with a weak back. Same thing. Look at the best weightlifters. Look at Lou. That dude's back, I mean, it's bodybuilding ready, you know, like. So so we do it to strengthen the torso, you know, to where it can, you know, the spinal extensors can get strong. But then to limit the load on the joints a little bit. But there's also, like, you know, as far as the quads, it's just as good. It's just as good as the high bar squat, minus the loads a little bit less. So it's perfect for what I'm going for.
When you periodize that out, you're starting. I mean, we can just call it 5 by 10. Front squats or 10 by 3 front squats. We're starting getting into the volume, but you want that to translate in 2-3 months down the road in a 12-week block into PRs. So you've got people building massive amounts of muscle. How do you kind of back that down from a 10 to a 1? Is it more linear or is it more, how are the jumps, or is it a linear, like, okay, we're going 6 weeks at 10s, then we go 4 weeks at 8s, 5s?
No, we do undulate. I mean, at the end of the day, I got news for everyone. It's all linear. The whole goal is like to start here and then end here, which is linear in nature. It's just how do you get there is where we debate. But, you know, I believe undulating periodization is a little bit better. Here's why. It's because, you know, spending the quality time, the entire block on the absolute strength range, gets people prepared for when it's time to do the 1RM, which is all that we can. If it's a strength athlete, all that really matters is your 1RM. So if you set up, you know, 10 RM PR, you set a 5 RM PR, a 3 RM PR, and then your 1 RM doesn't change, all of that was for nothing. You know, so like you're working on it the entire time. Like we're doing singles several weeks before we're ever going to do a true max single.
Well, that's a big thing too, because if you just spend your time doing something like 10 by 10, 5 by 10, you grow, but you're growing a lot of slow twitch fibers. You're not growing the musculature that's going to get you to a new 1RM. So you may have a bigger 3RM, a bigger 5, but when you go to that max single,
you're not ready.
You're not ready at all.
The neuromuscular system's not ready. I think there's some pretty good studies that says the body totally perceives like weight that's below 85% and above 85% completely different. So if you stay 85% and below the entire time, then at the very last 4 weeks you're like, all right, let's go. It's going to take a long time for your body to adapt to that stimulus. So I mean, in my experience, and we've, you know, our athletes, I think nobody would argue that it's, you know, in general, our weightlifters are by far the strongest. Talking about absolute strength. You know, they can argue technique all they want, but they cannot argue absolute strength. And I think that's why.